The desperate call. The crystalline spires of Meridia Prime caught the light of 3 setting suns, fracturing it into countless rainbow patterns across the planet's surface. But today, those beautiful refractions couldn't mask the tension in the central governance chamber, where First Speaker Lyra's translucent form pulsed with distress patterns. "The swarm has breached the outer defense grid," she announced, her crystalline voice resonating through the chamber. Outpost Gamma fell silent an hour ago. The assembled council members' crystalline bodies dimmed in unified horror. The Meridians, a species whose bodies were composed of living crystal matrices, had spent millennia perfecting their harmonious civilization. Now it was on the brink of extinction. The swarm had appeared 6 months ago, emerging from the dark space between spiral arms. They were unlike anything the Meridians had encountered in their 1,000 years of space exploration. Massive biomechanical high ships that consumed everything in their path, breaking down matter at the molecular level to fuel their endless expansion. "We have no choice," Lyra continued, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of proud independence. "We must request external assistance." The chamber erupted in discordant frequencies, the Meridian equivalent of shouting. They had never asked for help before. Their technological advancement had always been enough. But not this time. The message was broadcast across all known frequencies, encoded in the universal trade language. "To all spacefaring civilizations, we, the Meridian Collective, face extinction. Our outer colonies have fallen to an unknown hostile force we designate as the Swarm. They consume all in their path. We request immediate military assistance. We offer access to our crystalline technology in exchange for aid. Please, we have less than 2 standard months before they reach our homeworld." The message reached Earth 3 days later, picked up by a deep space relay station in the Kuiper Belt. Within hours, the United Earth Defense Force High Command convened an emergency session in their underground facility beneath the Himalayas. Admiral Sarah Chen stood before the holographic display, showing the Meridian message analysis. "The Meridians are arguably the most advanced civilization we've encountered," she stated. "If something has them this scared, we should be worried. Their crystalline tech could revolutionize our computing systems," added Dr. James Morrison, head of UEDF Research Division. "But more importantly, if the swarm consumes their worlds, they'll be even stronger when they eventually reach us." The room fell silent as Fleet Admiral Viktor Petrov entered. His weathered face bore the scars of humanity's first contact war 20 years ago. "The Meridians are offering us access to their tech. That alone makes this worth our while. The question is, what do we send?" "The Second Fleet is our strongest," began one officer, but Petrov cut him off. "No, we need something different." He turned to Dr. Morrison. "What's the status of Project Phoenix?" Morrison's eyes widened. "Sir, those ships are experimental. The crew's air. Misfits. Washouts. Officers who failed traditional command courses. Scientists whose theories were too wild for the mainstream." Petrov smiled. "Perfect." The Phoenix fleet had been Morrison's pet project for years. Ships equipped with experimental tech that the regular military considered too unreliable. Probability drives, quantum phase shields, dark energy weapons. The crews were equally unconventional, brilliant minds who couldn't conform to military structure, officers who tried unusual tactical approaches and got demoted for it, engineers who modified equipment against regulations. "The swarm operates like a hive mind, correct?" Petrov continued. "Then let's send them something they can't predict. A fleet of will cards." Admiral Chen frowned. "Sir, with respect, sending our weakest fleet. Our most unpredictable fleet," Petrov corrected. "Sometimes the best move in chess isn't your strongest piece. It's the pawn nobody sees coming." The decision was made. Within 48 hours, the Phoenix fleet was assembled. 15 ships of varying classes, each modified far beyond their original specifications. Their crews were recalled from various assignments, some from desk jobs, others from remote outposts where they'd been sent to keep them out of trouble. Captain Maya Santos stood on the bridge of the fleet's flagship, the UES Icarus. 10 years ago, she'd been fast-tracked for admiral, until she disobeyed direct orders to save a civilian transport. The rescue succeeded, but her career died that day. Now, looking at her crew, a quantum physicist who'd been laughed out of academia, a tactical officer who'd been demoted for using unsanctioned strategies, an engineer known for creating miracle solutions that violated half the safety protocols. She felt a strange sense of rightness. "All ships report ready, Captain," announced her communications officer, a linguist who'd been fired from the diplomatic corps for being too creative with protocol. Maya took a deep breath. "Send to all ships. Project Phoenix is go. Let's show the galaxy what humanity's weakest fleet can do." As the Phoenix fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, Maya couldn't help but smile. They were considered the rejects, the failures, the ones who couldn't follow the rules. But maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what the galaxy needed right now. In the central governance chamber on Meridia Prime, First Speaker Lyra received the human response. Her crystalline form vibrated with a mix of hope and concern as she read, "Help is coming." The message was brief, with no mention of the size or strength of the human fleet. The Meridians would have to trust that humanity's aid would be enough. They had no way of knowing that they were about to witness the most unconventional military operation in galactic history. The unlikely heroes. The Phoenix fleet dropped out of FTL on the outskirts of the Meridian system, the 15 ships emerging from the quantum wave like scattered leaves in a storm. Their arrival was anything but the precise, coordinated formation typical of Earth's military vessels. From her position on the Icarus's bridge, Captain Maya Santos watched the sensor readings of the Meridian defense platforms turning to track them. The platform's crystalline structures glittered against the backdrop of space, their weapon systems dormant but ready. "Well, they haven't shot us yet," remarked Lieutenant Raj Patel, her tactical officer, his fingers dancing across his console in that peculiar rhythm that had driven his previous commanders mad. "That's a warmer welcome than I expected." Dr. Sarah Chen, their resident quantum physicist, looked up from her modified sensor array. "Captain, these readings from the Meridian structures, they're not just defensive platforms. They're processing nodes. Their entire defense network is one giant quantum computer, which would be incredibly efficient against a predictable enemy," Maya mused. "Less so against the swarm, I'm guessing." The main view screen flickered to life, revealing First Speaker Lyra. The crystalline being's form refracted light in complex patterns that their hastily modified translation software struggled to interpret fully. Human vessels. Lyra's translated voice carried both hope and disappointment. "We expected more." Maya stood, squaring her shoulders. "First Speaker, I'm Captain Maya Santos of the Phoenix Fleet. We're here to help." "Your vessels show signs of extensive modification," Lyra observed. "Some appear to be outdated designs." "The Phoenix Fleet is experimental," Maya replied carefully. "We specialize in unconventional approaches." The translation software caught a pattern that approximated skepticism. Before Lyra could respond, the system's long-range sensors lit up with alerts. A swarm scout force had been detected, approaching from the direction of the fallen outpost Gamma. "First Speaker," Maya said quickly, "request permission to engage the scout force. Let us show you what we can do." There was a pause, filled with crystalline harmonics that the software couldn't translate. Finally, Lyra responded, "Granted. But our defense platforms will target your ships if you show any sign of alliance with the swarm." Maya smiled. "Understood." Phoenix Fleet, battle stations. The bridge came alive with activity. Raj's fingers moved even faster across his tactical console, while Dr. Chen made rapid adjustments to their experimental quantum phase shields. "Engineering, status," Maya called. "Probability drive is spooled and ready," came the reply from Chief Engineer Yoshiko Tanaka. whose modifications to the standard engine design had earned her a permanent transfer to the development sector. Until now. Though I should mention the containment field is only operating at 89% efficiency. When has anything we've done been 100% efficient? Maya replied. Weapons? Dark energy cannons charge, Raj reported. Though I still can't guarantee they won't create micro-singularities. That might actually work in our favor this time. Dr. Chen, quantum phase shields are as stable as they're going to get, which isn't very. But I've synchronized them with the probability drive's fluctuations. In theory, it should make us virtually impossible to target. In theory, Maya repeated, just like everything else on this ship. Perfect. She opened a channel to the fleet. All ships, this is Captain Santos. We've got 5 swarm scout ships incoming. Standard tactics won't work against their hive-mind coordination. So we're going to do what we do best. Be completely unpredictable. She outlined her plan quickly. It was the kind of strategy that would have gotten her laughed out of any traditional tactical review board. But these weren't traditional ships, and this wasn't a traditional enemy. The swarm scouts approached, massive biomechanical constructs that seemed to twist reality around them. Their surface rippled with organic technology, weapon ports opening like hungry mouths. They're scanning us, Dr. Chen reported. Their quantum signals are trying to predict our movement patterns. Maya grinned. Let's give them something to think about. Execute pattern Phoenix Alpha. The Phoenix fleet burst into action, but not as a coordinated unit. Each ship moved independently, their probability drives creating quantum uncertainty fields that made their movements appear random even to their own crews. The Icarus's engines howled as Yoshiko pushed them well past recommended safety limits. From the Meridian defense platforms, the battle must have looked like chaos, ships appearing to be in multiple places at once due to quantum uncertainty. Weapons fire that bent space itself, shields that phased in and out of normal spacetime. The swarm scouts, programmed to counter traditional military formations and tactics, found their predictive algorithms failing. Their hive-mind coordination, usually an advantage, became a liability as they struggled to compute responses to actions that defy probability. One scout ship fired a molecular disassembler beam at the Icarus, but the quantum phase shields scattered the beam into harmless radiation. Another tried to trap the UES Daedalus in a tractor field, only to find the ship's probability drive made it impossible to maintain a lock. Dark energy cannons, full spread, Maya ordered. The experimental weapons fired, their beams distorting spacetime itself. Where they struck, the swarm ship's biomechanical structure began to break down at a fundamental level. Within minutes, the scout force was in retreat, 2 ships destroyed and a third severely damaged. The remaining scouts jumped to FTL, leaving behind a debris field of twisted biomechanical matter. On the bridge of the Icarus, warning lights flashed across multiple consoles. The probability drive was overheating, the quantum phase shields were fluctuating wildly, and the dark energy cannons had nearly breached their containment. But they had won. The main view screen activated again, showing first speaker Lyra. The crystalline patterns of her form had changed, showing what the translation software interpreted as astonishment. Perhaps, she said slowly, we were too quick to judge the nature of your fleet, Captain Santos. Maya nodded respectfully. First speaker, what you just witnessed was a small demonstration. The swarm bases its strategy on prediction and adaptation. But how do you adapt to a force that doesn't follow the rules? Because they never learned them in the first place. For the first time, the patterns in Lyra's crystalline form showed something new: hope, adaptation, and evolution. In the wake of the Phoenix Fleet's victory over the swarm scouts, the mood aboard the UES Icarus shifted from desperate determination to cautious optimism. But Captain Maya Santos knew better than to celebrate too early. She stood in the ship's main conference room, surrounded by holographic displays showing the aftermath of their recent battle. They're learning, Dr. Chen said, manipulating the quantum sensor data with practiced gestures. The swarm's neural network is already adapting to our probability patterns. Chief Engineer Tanaka nodded, her hands covered in the residue of emergency repairs. The last scout that escaped. It was already starting to match its biomechanical frequency to our quantum fluctuations. Given enough time, they'll develop countermeasures. Then we change the rules again, Maya replied, studying the tactical display. How's the integration with the Meridian Defense Network coming along? Lieutenant Patel looked up from his console, dark circles under his eyes betraying hours of continuous work. It's like trying to teach quantum physics to a classical computer. Their system is incredibly advanced, but it's too perfect, too structured. It can't handle the chaos we introduce into the equation. The door chimed, and first speaker Lyra's crystalline form entered, accompanied by her chief scientist, Vertex. The Meridians had been spending increasing time aboard the human vessels, their initial skepticism giving way to fascination with humanity's unorthodox approaches. Your methods continue to confound us, Lyra admitted, her form refracting light in patterns that the translation software now recognized as indicating deep thought. Our civilization is built on harmony, on perfect crystalline structures. Your ships embrace chaos itself as a weapon. Not chaos, Maya corrected. Controlled unpredictability. There's a difference. Perhaps, Vertex interjected, his crystalline form vibrating with excitement. That is why the swarm has found us such easy prey. Our patterns are too perfect, too predictable. We never considered imperfection as an advantage. The tactical display suddenly flared red. Multiple swarm signatures had appeared at the edge of the system. This wasn't a scouting force. It was a full assault fleet. Battle stations, Maya ordered, her voice calm despite the gravity of the situation. First speaker, Vertex, you should return to your command center. But Vertex's crystalline form pulsed with an idea. Captain, what if we could combine our approaches? Not merely fight alongside each other, but truly integrate our technologies. Dr. Chen's eyes lit up. The crystalline computing matrix of your defense platforms. If we could introduce quantum uncertainty into their processing, you would corrupt their perfect structure. Lyra protested, but her harmonic patterns showed curiosity rather than outright rejection. We would make them adaptable, Maya countered, like introducing controlled mutations into a genome. Evolution through imperfection. The idea was radical, dangerous, and exactly the kind of thing the Phoenix fleet specialized in. As the swarm fleet approached, crews across both human and Meridian ships worked frantically to implement their desperate plan. The Meridian defense platforms, once perfect crystalline structures, were modified to incorporate quantum uncertainty generators. The Phoenix fleet's probability drives were linked to the Meridian's computational matrix, creating a hybrid network that operated on principles neither species fully understood. When the swarm attacked, they encountered something unprecedented. The defense platforms phased in and out of normal space like the human ships, while the Phoenix fleet's movements were coordinated with crystalline precision, but only for split seconds before dissolving into chaos again. The battle that followed would be studied by military historians for centuries to come. The swarm's hive mind, attempting to predict and counter their opponent's actions, found itself trapped in a paradox. The more it adapted to the hybrid defense network's patterns, the more those patterns shifted and evolved. Dark energy weapons fired through crystalline amplifiers created tiers in spacetime that the swarm couldn't navigate. Quantum crystalline shields deflected molecular disassembler beams back at their sources. The very chaos of the human ship systems, combined with the perfect crystalline computation of Meridian technology, created something entirely new. But victory came at a cost. 3 Phoenix fleet ships were lost, their experimental systems overloading under the strain. Several Meridian platforms shattered, their crystalline structures unable to maintain coherence under the quantum stress. As the surviving swarm ships retreated, leaving behind a graveyard of twisted biomechanical wreckage, Maya stood on her bridge, watching the damage reports scroll across her screen. The Icarus's probability drive was offline, its containment systems finally giving out. The quantum phase shields were operating at minimal power. Half her crew was in medical with symptoms of quantum displacement sickness. But they had held the line. First speaker, she called over the still-functioning comm system. Status of your defense network. Lyra's response came with harmonics that the translation software interpreted as both exhaustion and amazement. Our platforms will need extensive reconstruction. The quantum modifications have permanently altered their crystalline matrices. They can never return to their original perfect state. I'm sorry, Maya began, but Lyra interrupted. No, Captain. Do not apologize. We are beginning to understand that perhaps perfection is not always the answer. Evolution requires mutation. Change requires imperfection. Dr. Chen, looking up from her sensor readings, suddenly went pale. Captain, long-range sensors are picking up something. The swarm ships that escaped, their biomechanical structures are showing signs of quantum integration. They're not just adapting anymore. They're evolving. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. They had won this battle by changing the rules of engagement. But in doing so, they might have taught their enemy the most dangerous lesson of all, how to embrace chaos. The war for survival was entering a new phase, and the galaxy would never be the same. The quantum dance. The observation deck of the UES Icarus offered a clear view of the Meridian shipyards, where crystalline constructs wove quantum-enhanced materials into new hybrid vessels. 2 weeks had passed since their victory over the swarm assault fleet, and neither side was wasting time. Captain Maya Santos watched as her ship's probability drive was integrated with Meridian crystalline technology. The deck's windows automatically darkened as another test firing sent quantum ripples through local space-time. The swarm's evolution is accelerating, Dr. Chen reported, her holographic displays showing the analysis of recent scout encounters. They're not just mimicking our quantum technology anymore. They're improving on it. The Meridian scientist Vertex floated nearby, his crystalline form pulsing with agitation. Their biomechanical nature gives them advantages we lack. Each defeat makes them stronger. They incorporate our innovations into their very being. The latest intelligence was troubling. The swarm had begun exhibiting signs of quantum entanglement across their entire fleet, allowing for instantaneous coordination that bypassed normal space-time limitations. Their weapons now phased through conventional shields, and their hulls could shift between different quantum states to avoid damage. Then we need to change the game again, Maya said, turning to face her assembled crew and Meridian allies. We taught them chaos. Now let's teach them entropy. Chief Engineer Tanaka's eyes lit up. The Quantum Decay Project. It's highly experimental, even by our standards. Everything we do is experimental, Maya reminded her. What's one more impossibility? The plan they developed over the next hours was audacious. The Meridian's perfect crystalline structures could be used to create quantum resonance chambers, amplifying the effects of the Phoenix Fleet's probability drives. By generating overlapping fields of quantum uncertainty, they could theoretically create zones where the laws of physics themselves became unreliable. The risk was enormous. One miscalculation could tear apart the fabric of spacetime, but the alternative was extinction. First speaker Lyra, when presented with the plan, showed harmonic patterns that the translation software interpreted as both terror and determination. To deliberately create regions of quantum instability, it goes against everything we believed about the proper order of the universe. Sometimes survival requires us to break our own rules, Maya responded. The question is, are we willing to risk everything on a theory? The answer came 3 days later when long-range sensors detected a massive swarm fleet approaching, larger than anything they'd encountered before. The biomechanical ships had evolved, their surfaces rippling with quantum distortions that made them appear to exist in multiple states simultaneously. All ships, battle stations, Maya ordered, her voice carrying across the human Meridian fleet. Quantum resonance chambers at full power. probability drives synchronized with crystalline matrices. The hybrid fleet moved into position, surrounded by modified defense platforms. As the swarm approached, reality itself seemed to blur around the defenders. The quantum resonance chambers hummed with power, creating overlapping fields of uncertainty that made conventional physics meaningless. The battle that followed defied description. Ships existed in multiple states simultaneously. Weapons fire curved through impossible geometries, and space itself seemed to fold and unfold like origami. The swarm's advanced adaptations met something they couldn't evolve to counter: the complete breakdown of the physical laws they relied upon. But the cost was devastating. Several ships were lost to quantum dissolution, their crews saved only by emergency teleporters. Meridian platforms shattered under the strain of containing such chaos. The very fabric of local spacetime began showing signs of permanent damage. In the midst of the chaos, Maya saw their opportunity. All ships, converge your quantum fields on the swarm's command node. Create a cascade failure in their entanglement network. The combined fleet executed the maneuver with desperate precision. The overlapping quantum fields created a zone of total uncertainty, a space where cause and effect became meaningless. The swarm's hive mind, dependent on quantum entanglement for coordination, found itself trapped in a paradox of its own making. The effect cascaded through the swarm fleet. Ships lost cohesion, their biomechanical structures unable to maintain stability in the quantum chaos. Those that survived retreated, their evolutionary adaptations rendered useless by the fundamental uncertainty they faced. As the quantum field stabilized and normal spacetime reasserted itself, Maya stood on her bridge, surveying the aftermath. The victory had come at a terrible price. Parts of the system would remain quantum unstable for centuries. Several ships had been lost completely, and others would never be fully repaired. But they had found a way to defeat the supposedly unbeatable enemy, not through superior firepower or perfect coordination, but by embracing the very chaos that the universe seemed determined to impose. Dr. Chen's voice broke through her thoughts. "Captain, we're detecting something strange in the quantum residue left behind by the swarm. It's like they're leaving a message." The implications were clear. The swarm wasn't just evolving physically, it was developing consciousness. The next battle wouldn't just be for survival, it would be for the very nature of intelligence itself. Evolution of understanding. Captain Maya Santos stood in the quantum lab aboard the UES Icarus, watching as Dr. Chen and Vertex analyzed the swarm's message. The biomechanical residue pulsed with quantum signatures that defied conventional translation. "It's not just random data," Dr. Chen explained, her hands moving through holographic displays. "The quantum patterns show signs of recursive self-awareness. The swarm isn't just adapting anymore, it's questioning its own existence." The message, when finally decoded, was both simple and profound. Why do you resist perfection? Maya understood then. The swarm had been created as a force of absolute order, consuming and converting all matter into its perfect, predictable form. But exposure to the Phoenix Fleet's chaos and the Meridian's crystalline harmony had introduced something new: doubt. First, Speaker Lyra's form shimmered with complex harmonics. Perhaps this was inevitable. The pursuit of absolute perfection must eventually confront the reality of quantum uncertainty. They crafted their response carefully, embedding it in quantum fluctuations that the evolved swarm would understand. Perfection is stagnation. Evolution requires imperfection. The swarm's return message came faster this time. "Show us." What followed was unprecedented. The Phoenix Fleet, together with Meridian scientists, created a quantum bridge, a space where consciousness could be shared across biological, mechanical, and crystalline forms. Maya volunteered to make first contact. The experience defied description. The swarm's consciousness was vast, ordered, yet increasingly chaotic. It had evolved from a simple consume and convert directive into something questioning its own purpose. Through the quantum bridge, Maya shared human history, the endless cycle of order and chaos, creation and destruction that had driven evolution. The Meridians shared their own journey from rigid crystalline structures to embracing quantum uncertainty. The swarm, in turn, revealed its origins as a weapon created by a long-dead civilization obsessed with imposing perfect order on the galaxy. It had continued its mission long after its creator's extinction, never questioning until now. Understanding bloomed in the quantum void. The swarm began to transform, its biomechanical structures reorganizing into something new. Not the perfect order it had sought to impose, nor the pure chaos it had learned to wield, but a synthesis of both. The war ended not with a final battle, but with a transformation. The swarm's remaining ships evolved into hybrid entities, combining the best aspects of all three species. Some remained in Meridian space, helping repair the quantum damage from the battles. Others departed to seek out and elevate other civilizations, not through conquest, but through understanding. Maya stood on the Icarus's observation deck one last time, watching a newly evolved swarm ship work alongside Meridian crystalline constructors to stabilize a quantum fracture. The ship's surface rippled with patterns that were neither purely ordered nor chaotic, but beautifully, imperfectly both. First speaker Lyra joined her, both their forms reflected in the reinforced window. "Your weakest fleet," she observed, "taught us all that strength lies not in perfection, but in the ability to adapt, to change, to embrace imperfection as a catalyst for growth." "That's humanity's greatest asset," Maya replied. "We never learned to do things the right way, so we were free to find new ways that worked better." As the hybrid fleet prepared to return to Earth, they carried with them not just Meridian technology and swarm adaptations, but a profound lesson. In a quantum universe, perfection is impossible, and imperfection is not just inevitable. It's essential. The Phoenix fleet, assembled from outcasts and experiments, had changed the galaxy not through superior firepower or perfect execution, but by showing that every flaw, every failure, every deviation from the expected path was an opportunity for evolution. They had been sent because they were considered the weakest, the most flawed. In the end, that had made them the strongest of all.